The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network. It's time for Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. We'll talk all things Hokie wrestling with Coach Tony Robie and staff. Now, let's join your host, Hall of Fame wrestling writer and broadcaster, Jason Bryant.
Season 5 of Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling kicks off episode 73. Jason Bryant here with you. Greetings, Hokie Nation. Today we're joined again by head wrestling coach Tony Robie. And Coach Robie, wrestling season is here. Wrestling season is here. Say it with me again. Wrestling season is here. Hokie Open just finished up. And how excited are you to finally have blown the first whistle of the wrestling season?
Yeah, it's good. I think our guys are probably more excited than I am, but yeah, it's definitely for us. This is what it's all about. This is what we've been training for, and this is what we've been preparing for since the season ended basically last March. So, we did some freestyle training in between there and wrestled a few freestyle events, but the majority of the time we've just kind of been banging heads in the room. This time of year is long, it's monotonous, it's, very routine, not that exciting, I guess, before you start to compete. And then once the competition starts, I think all that changes and the excitement level changes. I know for me personally, I've said this before, that I enjoy traveling with the coaching staff, traveling with the guys on the team, and being able to spend that time together. I think you create some unique bonds, and it's a fun part of the job for me personally. So yeah, we're definitely excited that we were able to kick things off with a successful weekend up in Roanoke, and fired up about heading out to the Midwest and in a couple weeks here in wrestling Missouri and Northwestern.
Yeah, as we look back, before we talk to the Hokie Open, we talk inter-squad, and the inter-squad is something that wasn't super prevalent, 15, 20 years ago in college wrestling. I mean, some schools did it as a promotion. Now we're almost seeing it becoming an event. Teams are putting it on the schedule. And why does Virginia Tech do its orange-maroon inter-squad, not necessarily a wrestle-off, but a true inter-squad bout?
I think for a couple different reasons. Number one, it's a starting point for us to determine what our lineup is going to be. And in some weight classes and in some situations, those matches in the inter-squad match really mean something. But it's also an opportunity for our guys to put a singlet on, to compete in front of our fans, compete on the Castle Coliseum floor, and just experience some of those jitters that they might have before competitions, and just to get that out of the way. So I think it's just another opportunity to get out there and compete. It's great for our fans. I know that our fans really love it, and it was pretty well attended this year. I would say that those are the diehards that come out for the inter-squad and come out for the Hokie Open, and they really know all the guys on the team and are excited about the matchups, and probably a lot of those guys that get on the forums and talk about VT wrestling. So I think as much as anything, it's a good event for our fans, and it's just a great way to kick off the season for us, and it gives us as coaches an opportunity to see our guys in action and make some evaluations.
Yeah, it's akin to the football fans who go to the spring game at insert particular school here, that the spring game means absolutely nothing except, you get to see how the guys have progressed, and this is the inter-squad kind of the same thing, only it's before the season and not after the season.
Yeah, it's very similar. It's very similar, and I think it's another thing, like with the spring games, football fans get really excited about that, and they like to see the new guys, they like to see the freshmen, they like to see the faces that they haven't seen before and get a look at those guys. So I think that's probably as good a comparison as you'll find.
Did anybody really impress you at the inter-squad? You get to see these guys scrap with each other all the time, and did anybody, once they got the competition lights up there, kind of say, you know what, they wrestle maybe a little differently than they do in the room?
I'll say this much. The inter-squad match is a little bit difficult just because these guys have wrestled each other so many times and they're very familiar with each other's styles. And so a lot of times you don't see a lot of points getting put on the board. And obviously you're wrestling guys that you're close with, and maybe your roommate, maybe one of your best friends. So it adds another element to it. And I think sometimes it's not quite as exciting as you'll see when we're competing against other teams. But I guess as far as guys that stood out, Zach Zavatsky, I thought looked looked really, really good. Zach wrestled Stan Smeltzer, who we think a lot of. I think Stan is going to be a really good Division I wrestler for us here at Virginia Tech. He's still a young guy and still developing, but he's tough and he's proven himself at this level. And Zach, was pretty dominant in that match. So he was probably the guy that stood out the most to me. Mekhi Lewis looked really, really good in that match as well, and we kind of expected that. And he was wrestling Jordan Florence, who was probably a little bit outmatched in that match. But those are the two guys really that I thought looked great.
Moving to the Hokie Open, this is something that was added to the schedule. I guess how many years we at? We're almost at 10 years with this thing. I mean,
I think we are at 10. Yeah, it's quite a few. If it's not 10, it's close to it.
Yeah, and it's definitely something that's added an open dynamic to the East Coast. We see opens come and go. With the loss of Eastern Michigan up in the Midwest, we kind of lost that as an open tournament. Michigan State has been there for a while. Princeton started an open this year, so there's opportunities. And as we look at the Hokie Open, and one of the things that it does that tournaments like the Michigan State Open does is it has a freshman sophomore division and an open division. And a lot of young Hokies had success in the freshman sophomore division. And right now at 125, you've got an inter-squad matchup that went the way of Joey Prada. Then you had a semifinal at the Hokie Open that went the way of Joey Prada. And he's coming off that injury that ended the season last year. And you've got a battle at 125.
We do, and I think that's one of the matches, or that's one of the weight classes that is still developing. I mean, Joey obviously won the first two rounds there. To be quite honest, both the matches were incredibly close and probably could have went either way. But Joey's, I think he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's actually been out of the lineup for 2 consecutive years with injuries. 2 years ago, when he was a true freshman, he got injured his very first match wrestling unattached at the Hokie Open. And last year, he was hurt in the inter squad. So Joey's shown some unbelievable perseverance to get back to where he is currently and to be competing at the level that he's competing at. I thought he was been wrestling really well. He didn't perform great in the finals of the Hokie Open, and so he needs to improve upon that. But as of right now, he's kind of in the lead, I guess is the best way to put it. But and like I told Joey and like I told Kyle, this is an ongoing thing, and this is going to be about the guy that competes the best for Virginia Tech when they get their opportunities. And right now, Joey has earned the opportunity to wrestle and to step out there with our varsity squad and compete and have an opportunity to keep the spot if he performs well. But it's an ongoing thing, and it's kind of a starting point to figure out who's going to be the guy at the end of the year. And it's good to have two guys. I like having competition. I like having two guys competing against each other because I think it's going to bring out the best in both of them.
Yeah, let's go with a couple second-place finishes. I'm going to jump over 141 for a minute. And Colin Girardi was second in the freshman sophomore at 133, and Josh Baer at 149. And again, the mentality of putting guys in a freshman sophomore versus, say, Princeton only had the open division. What is the coaching, I guess, mindset or I guess the theory behind, all right, maybe even second year guys going into that freshman sophomore division?
I think you want them to go win a tournament, and you want them to get as many matches as possible, and you want them to have success. So especially when they're young. I mean, Mekhi Lewis wrestled in the freshman sophomore division last year, and we pretty much wrestled all of our true freshmen up to this point in the freshman sophomore division. So I think it's a good place for them to start out their college wrestling career, especially when they're true freshmen, and get a taste of it. Because it is going to get harder, and we told them that. I mean, when you start going to these open tournaments where there's no freshman sophomore division, the caliber of the competition is going to be better. It's going to be more difficult. So I think that this is good experience for those guys to get into these events, have success, get their feet wet, and just start building towards bigger and better things, hopefully. And that's kind of what our philosophy is. And we knew Mitch Moore is ready to compete in the open division, but I just felt like it was good for him to go out and get a bunch of wins and wrestle well and start to get his confidence up. So I think it's just something to build upon.
And talk about Mitch Moore. He went major fall 9-3 to win 141 pounds. And, there's going to be a Moore somebody at 141. Last year was Brent. This year we're looking at Mitch. And is this something that's kind of, indicative of like, yeah, we're going to see the true freshman here out the chute at 141?
Yeah, Mitch is wrestling for Virginia Tech at 141 this year. He won the wrestle off against Dom Latona. So he's got that same opportunity, like I said, that Joey Prada has to go out there and allow us to see what he's about and what he can do for us. And he's been pretty impressive. He was very impressive this weekend. I think Mitch competes well. He's, wrestled at St. Paris Graham in high school, so he wrestled in a lot of big high school events. He was a 4-time Ohio State champion. So, when the lights are on, I think he does his best wrestling, and I really felt like his level of intensity and his level of effort was a step higher this weekend in Roanoke than maybe we've even seen in the wrestling room from him. So that was exciting. He's going to definitely have his work cut out for him when we go to Missouri when he takes on Ironman, and that'll be a good test and allow us to see really exactly where he's at right now.
One thing also for Hokie Nation to consider is when you're looking at the athletes, let's use Mitch Moore as an example, opening round NC State, second round Davidson, then he had a Division II guy, then he had a Virginia guy, then he had another NC State guy. Those are Division I opponents. They count when it comes to the qualification process and RPI. All these athletes that are Division I athletes, whether they're freshman, sophomore, open division, they count in terms of wins and losses here with your RPI and such. So that's also an important thing to remember here in the early going.
It is, and that definitely plays into our decision-making as well as at the end of the year, and I don't think it's going to be an issue for Mitch, but you never know. You want to have as many Division I wins as possible on your season record. It allows you to get your winning percentage as high as possible and hopefully helps you qualify a spot for the NCAA tournament. So for Mitch to go get, I think, what did you say, at 4 Division I wins in one day is going to be helpful, I think, down the road when we get to that point.
Anybody else from the freshman sophomore division? Obviously those were the higher place winners that you looked at and you're like, you know what, that's a good weekend. That was a good opportunity for you to win some matches.
I thought Colin Girardi wrestled well. I thought he could have easily have won in the finals. He lost on riding time, and was in on some shots, just couldn't finish. But I liked the way he competed, and I'm excited about the direction that he's going. He's a good worker. He is a talented kid. He's had really good coaching in high school, so he's ready for college wrestling. I think a redshirt year will do him well, and I expect him to have some success at these open tournaments as we move forward. Cody Howard was wrestling pretty well, and he tweaked his hamstring in the semifinals and ended up losing that match and defaulted from the tournament. But up till that point, Cody was wrestling pretty well. I mean, his effort is, for anybody who's seen Cody wrestled or watching this weekend, he wrestles as hard as anybody, maybe that I've ever seen put a singlet on it. His effort is incredible. He makes a lot of mistakes still, and those are things that we're trying to correct and fix, and some areas that he needs to improve upon. But he definitely brings the heat every time he steps out there, and that's always good to see. But Caden Darber has made some progress. And there's some other young guys I think that have definitely made some progress since last year as well. So for me, it's a good opportunity to watch some of these guys at the Hokie Open, because if they're not in our starting lineup, I don't get to see them compete a lot. Most of the open tournaments that they go to, we're either competing at home or we're on the road or we have a conflict, so it's hard for us to get to those events and watch these guys. So I tried to spend as much time as possible over on the freshman sophomore side of the arena and watch as many of those guys as possible.
As we move to the open division, Corbin Myers was upended early by Noah Gonzer, was a transfer from Eastern Michigan to Campbell, and then in the backside did have a big win over Gary Wayne Harding, who is a past NCAA qualifier at Oklahoma State, has transferred to North Carolina, ultimately finished 5th. And for those that see 5th, they're like, what? No, you got to make the semis to wrestle for 3rd in this open tournament format. And taking a loss early, what's the situation with Corbin here?
Corbin, I think, didn't wrestle his best. I think he recognizes that. I don't know if it was nerves or I don't know what it was exactly, but I felt like as the day went on, he started to wrestle better. And Corbin just needs to, what he does in the wrestling room, he just needs to take the same approach when he's competing, because in the wrestling room, he's been one of the more impressive guys that we've had so far this season. So we had and we still have high expectations for him. And I think it's something that Corbin's going to iron out, but he definitely didn't wrestle his best. He looked tentative a little bit. He just didn't wrestle his match, and that's something that we need to continue to work on. And he's new to our program and new to our coaching staff, and I think it's just going to require a little bit of patience, but I do think Corbin's ceiling is very high. He's got a lot of ability. He's a talented kid. He's had a lot of success before coming to Virginia Tech at the college level, so I know he's very, very capable, and it's just a matter of ironing a few things out, both mentally and physically.
as we're moving forward, 149 pounds. Ryan Blease finishing second. Now he lost to a tough Mitch Feinsilver from Duke, who had just come off wrestling at the All-Star Classic. But Blease now at 49 to start the year. What is the difference now between Ryan Blease starting this season and then where he began at this point last year?
Well, last year he had wrestled off at 157 and he'd won the spot and gotten a lineup and had some opportunities and really didn't capitalize on those opportunities. And we had a situation last year where, we could kind of tell that we were going to need some help at 149 as the season went on. So Ryan's one of those guys that, he just wants to work out constantly. He's on the bike after practice every day. He's, burning calories all the time. He just loves to sweat. So, it was a situation when he was at 157 where we were constantly trying to get him to back off of doing cardio and running and taking off his sweatpants and sweatshirt when he's in there drilling and working out. And, a lot of times he would weigh 2, 3, 4 pounds underweight. So I went to him about halfway through the year and just made the suggestion before he left for Christmas break and told him to think about it while he was gone, talk to his family about it because it was going to require some discipline and it wasn't going to be easy for him to get down to 41. He had certified at 49. He had certified at 149. So he came back and decided that was the move for him. And when he had that opportunity at 149, he took advantage of it and wrestled well, had some really good wins for us last year, was second at the ACC. So I think having an entire season at 149 this year, it's the right weight class for him. I don't think there's any question about that. He's a big 49-pounder, but like I said, Ryan's got as much discipline as anybody on our team in terms of doing the right things outside of the room with his nutrition and his intake, calories-wise. So, I think being there for the whole year and getting more experience and just getting opportunities to compete is going to be good for Ryan. He definitely needs to make some improvements in some areas. His bottom wrestling needs to get better. But, one thing about Ryan is he's not afraid to put in the work, and he competes hard every time he steps out on the mat. So, again, a lot like Corbin, I think it's about fine-tuning some things, and I think his best wrestling is ahead of him this season.
Moving 157 pounds, we didn't see BC LaPrade there. We will see him in the upcoming dual meets against Missouri and Northwestern. We'll discuss that later in the episode. But 57, looking at some depth there. What did you see out of Jake Hart?
Jake Hart's a young guy that I think's got some talent. I felt like he had some lapses this weekend, and I didn't get to watch all his matches because we have so many guys competing, but I did watch him a couple times. He's very difficult to score on. He wrestles some low-scoring matches, but I think he just needs to become a little more well-rounded as a wrestler, and he needs to improve in every position coming out of South Carolina, which isn't traditionally a great wrestling state. I don't think he's had to put as much emphasis on getting off bottom and really working diligently on his feet and getting the guys' legs and getting past their hands and, using his hands and, just working on setups. But I think Jake is got a lot of ability and a lot of potential, but he's definitely a guy that's going to have to stay in here and grind it out for a couple of years. And I think if he can do that, he can really develop into being somebody that can help us at this level.
165 pounds. I think everybody and their mother knows about this guy, Mekhi Lewis. Goes through the tournament, blows the doors off of one guy, gets the major. But, the typical, score when I want to type of situation, 8-6 against, Bryce Martin's not chopped liver from Indiana in the finals. And, what'd you think of Mekhi getting back to the folk style world?
Yeah, I think Mekhi, we need to forget about and quit talking about really what happened at the Junior World Championships. It's great, and it's a great thing for his career and for his freestyle career moving forward. But this is a different style of wrestling, and we have to focus on, what we need to do to be the best guy in the, college ranks this year at 165 pounds, and he's capable. I think Mekhi's, some of his scores were somewhat close, but I never really felt like he was in danger at all. He pretty much controlled every match, and he's got to get better at generating his own offense, quite honestly. He's got great reattacks, and he's just incredibly difficult to score on, almost impossible to score on. But if he can go out and score a takedown early in the match and get guys to come after him a little bit more, I think it'll open up a lot of scoring opportunities for him. He reminds me a lot of a guy named Joe Williams back in the day who had a similar style and didn't always light up the scoreboard, but just controlled every match and was almost impossible to take down and was always able to squeak out at least 1 or 2 or 3 takedowns a match. So, but that's it's good for us to see where Mackay needs to improve too, and that's what this is about, and that's what this early part of the season is about, is for us as coaches to be able to evaluate these guys and then come back and start doing some individual workouts and working in these areas where we need to get better.
Did you ever have a chance to get your hands on Joe Williams?
Quite a few times, yeah. It never went well for me.
The reason I bring it up, because this is where maybe Mackay could use that to his advantage. Because my roommate wrestled Joe Williams in the semis at Midlands. I think it was when Joe was winning his 10th, and Jeff Brusack comes back and his face is all just battered. It's like, Jeff, what was that double leg like? He goes, it's like getting hit by a truck. So maybe that's what we need to instill, the fear in those who wrestle Mackay. Getting hit with his stuff's like getting hit by a truck, so they fear it maybe more. Maybe borrow that from Joe Williams, perhaps.
Yeah, and Mackay's capable, and he did that in a lot of cases this weekend. I mean, when he can blow through guys. That's for sure. So, there were a lot of positives, and we're really excited about Mackay and where he's at right now, and we have really high expectations.
I just love Joe Williams references, so I just threw that story out just for giggles. 174 pounds. We know David McFadden's getting prepped to go to Bucharest, Romania for the U23 World Championships. And while, again, it's an entirely different style of wrestling altogether, we can say that, we're looking forward to Dave's performance at U23 Worlds. And, what's it look like his training been for the last couple of weeks?
It's been good, really good. He's kind of on his own individual training plan, and Coach Molinaro has been spending a lot of time with him and helping him get ready and really, helping him fine tune some things and wrestling and with him doing a lot of freestyle matches in the room. So just like Mackay, I feel like Dave's ready for this event. He's excited about the opportunity to go win a world championship, and he's been really focused. It's been good for him to have a goal that's out in front of him, not too far away, that he can kind of wrap his mind around and focus on and work towards. So, I think his discipline has been really good this fall, and his training has been fantastic. He had a little minor injury here that he had to get over about a month ago, but he's been back on the mat and looking really sharp for the last 2 weeks. So right now, I think it's getting a few more really good hard training sessions in, and then just starting to taper back and get ready for the U23 World Championships. But obviously, we miss having Dave in our lineup and watching him compete, because just the way he wrestles, and Dave typically goes out and scores a lot of points when he has the opportunity to score a lot of points and kind of sets the tone for our team and is a leader for our team. So it'll be nice to get him back in the swing of things and wearing maroon and orange here relatively soon.
So in the meantime, what are you looking at 174 when we get to Missouri and Northwestern?
Cody Hughes, who's a veteran guy for us, he's in his 4th year. We'll have that opportunity, and Cody's always, he hasn't had a lot of opportunities. He's been behind some good guys, and Zach Epperly, and then last year Hunter Bolin, and this year Dave. So hopefully he's excited about the opportunity to get out there and compete with the starting team. Cody works really hard. He loves wrestling. He's always trying to improve. By the way he works, you would never know that he's not a guy that hasn't been in our starting lineup or hasn't wrestled at the ACC championships yet, because he's just kind of got the attitude that he's putting his head down, grinding it out, and trying to get better. So feel good about sitting in Cody Hughes' corner and sending him out there next weekend when we travel to the Midwest.
184 pounds, co-champs here, Zach Zavatsky, Hunter Bolin. And Bolin with the big win of the weekend, knocking off All-American Chip Ness of North Carolina in the semifinals. And, good problem to have, good depth to have, and pretty much, reading the, for lack of a better term, the tea leaves here, looks like maybe a red shirt in order for Mr. Bolin.
Yeah, that's the plan right now, is for Hunter to redshirt and just continue to get big and strong and better at wrestling. And quite honestly, he's he's really been one of the more impressive guys in the wrestling room. So for him to go out and beat Chip Nez, who was a returning All-American and ranked in the top 8 in the country, didn't surprise us at all, to be honest with you. I mean, he's been on a tear in the wrestling room, and he's just getting big and strong and is really filling out into a good-size 84-pounder. And that's kind of our plan for him this year, is to just wrestle 184. He's not going to have to cut much weight, but it allows him to focus on getting better. And, Hunter had a great year last year as a true freshman. I don't think, things finished the way he wanted them to, or the way he was capable of finishing at the NCAA tournament. But I think that's driven him hard to kind of reevaluate where he needed to get better, and the areas that he needed to be more committed to the sport of wrestling. And when we sat down after the NCAA tournament and talked about what he needed to do to compete for a national title and the things that he needed to change with his wrestling and with his focus, he's made huge changes in those areas, and it's paying off, and we're seeing them when he steps out and competes on the wrestling mat. So I think he's going to turn a lot of heads this year as a redshirt when he gets opportunities to go out there and compete in a lot of these open events.
197, we already touched on Cody Howard in the freshman sophomore division. When do we see Tom Slay for the first time?
Tom should be back when we travel out to Missouri and Northwestern. We anticipate him being in there.
All right, same question with Billy Miller at 285 before we talk about John Bors.
Yeah, Billy's going to be a little bit longer. Billy, I would guess that he's back sometime after Las Vegas. Whether it'll be Princeton or West Virginia, I don't know. We'll kind of make that decision as it gets closer and see where he's at. But he's looking good. He's progressing nicely. The work ethic is off the charts. One of the hardest working big guys that have been around. So he'll be back relatively soon, hopefully near the end of this semester.
Now we look at John Borst again, full feed up to 285, close loss to Matt Voss from George Mason and Kerry Miller of Appalachian State. Now on paper, you look at it and be like, George Mason, App State. These two guys are pretty solid. These aren't bad losses for John Borst.
They're not. And both those guys are good. I think Voss from George Mason was ranked 11th in the country, maybe, at least in one ranking. And John's very capable. I mean, and I think he could have easily won both of those matches. And I think John needs to sometimes, John doesn't understand how big and strong and athletic he really is. I think he's capable of going out there and getting anybody's legs and scoring takedowns. And, he just needs to tweak his mindset a little bit and go out there and expect to be able to, dominate in a lot of cases and go out there and be able to turn those close 1-point losses into 1-point wins. So that's kind of where we're at with John. And he's a young guy still. We get it. And he's not a big heavyweight, but at the same time, strength isn't an issue for John. He's an incredibly strong guy, and his wrestling skill is very good. So John's going to, he's going to have an opportunity to be the guy this year. I mean, it's by no means a foregone conclusion that it's Billy's spot. Billy will have an opportunity to come back and compete for that spot once he's healthy. But, John early on here in the season has got some opportunities to do some really good things and put himself in a good position to be the guy for us here. So hopefully he, takes advantage of those. But, overall, like you said, when you look at it on paper, it wasn't a great showing, I guess. But I think when you break it down and you look at his matches and you see how he wrestled, there were a lot of positive things.
Yeah, plus he's a Sharando warrior. I always liked Pepper Martin coaching up there in Sharando, even though they were a rival of ours back in the day. So a little Sharando shout out there.
Yeah, all right, man.
I just have to throw my Virginia AA knowledge at you. Back when it was 3 divisions, not this. Never mind. I don't want to get into the 6th division crap again here. Anyway, moving forward, got a week off. What happens between the Hokie Open and the trip out to Columbia for Missouri? I mean, what's going on this week?
Some good training. We're hitting a nice hard training phase here through this week, and then early on into next week, and then we'll start to back off, middle of next week and make sure we're rested and feeling good come next, Friday the 16th, I believe it is, when we wrestle at Missouri. So, but yeah, right now our guys had Monday off, and then we came back and did some stuff yesterday morning on the mat, and then lifted in the afternoon, and then we'll have a really good, tough mat practice today in the afternoon, and roll through a nice little training phase here. So it's nice to have these opportunities when you have weekends off, because it does allow you to train a little bit harder than you could otherwise when you're competing every weekend. So, it didn't necessarily intentionally schedule things like that, but just the way it worked out, I think it's going to be to our benefit.
Now we look at Missouri. I mean, this is a team that's been well coached. They've kind of had your number the last couple of years in terms of, winning matches and situations that, crazy things tend to happen. I mean, and what's your basically viewpoint of Coach Smith and the Missouri program?
Have a lot of respect for Coach Smith and his staff and their program. I mean, I think what he's done there, building that thing from ground zero.
Yeah, they were bad. For people that don't remember, they were bad. Like not like bad Big 12 back in the day. They were bad when he took the job.
Yeah, no, he's done an unbelievable job, really, and just has produced, every single year, just been so consistent too. They're almost always in the top 5, 6, 7 in the country, and they've gotten some trophies at the NCAA tournament. They've produced a bunch of national champions. So, I think that says it all right there, and I think he does it the right way, and I respect him as a person too. So when we get an opportunity to go out there and wrestle those guys, it's great for our program and our team, and for me to have a lot of respect for him. So it's a great opportunity for us to hopefully go out there and change that result from the last couple of years. And like I said, they've beaten us the last 2 years, and 2 years ago they beat us pretty handily, and last year was a little bit closer in the dual meet here at Virginia Tech. So we're just excited to go out and compete against one of the top tier programs. There's going to be a lot of great individual matches, and we're going to see a lot of great individual wrestlers from Missouri that we're going to have to step up our game and compete well that night.
I believe they've got 5 ranked wrestlers in terms of depending on which poll you look at. And then going into Northwestern, which just got upended by North Dakota State in Fargo. Granted, they did not wrestle with Sebastian Rivera. They're All-American at 125. And you got a team that's got some youth, it's got some experience, and you've got a very fiery coach in Matt Storniolo there. What are you looking forward to the matchup with Northwestern?
It should be good, and I don't know whether 25 will be back for them, but obviously that's a big loss. I think he's ranked second in the country, and the guy's really good. So not having him in North Dakota State, I'm sure, would played into that result a lot. But they'll be ready to go, especially coming off a loss at North Dakota State. So I'm just excited to see how we respond. We need to go on the road and compete on a Friday and then again on a Sunday, and make sure that we're gonna have to make weight twice in one weekend, so our discipline is going to have to be good. And I think we're going to learn a lot about our team and the toughness of our team and these individuals, and kind of see where they're at. And that's what I'm excited the most about. I mean, that's what the regular season is really about in the sport of wrestling, is to learn a lot about your team and then hopefully fix things as the season goes along. And this is a huge opportunity for us and a big weekend for us, to see where we're at and see where our guys are at individually.
Now, as we look at the rest of the month after that, the Cliff Keen Las Vegas Invitational at the end of November, beginning of December, is we run down the dual meet schedule here just briefly. You got a duel with Princeton. That's a school we talked about a little bit, and Chris Ayers doing a great job there. West Virginia. The Virginia Tech, West Virginia battle in any sport is just worth watching as you close out the year, a couple weeks off before the Southern Scuffle. But in terms of how you built November and December, coaching philosophy-wise, scheduling philosophy, I mean, how do you like the setup, and how do you think this is going to, gear the program up to hit all strides going into that stretch run of the season come January, February?
I like it. We're easing into the season, I guess, not so much from the level of competition. The level of competition is really good, but, we have a couple weekends off here in November, and we'll kind of hit the ground running, once we get to the first year, and we won't have much time off. So it's good. I think going to Las Vegas, going to the Southern Scuffle, I think we wrestle 4 teams that are currently ranked in the top 10 in dual meets with Missouri, Lehigh, Cornell, and NC State. Those will all be huge challenges for us. So we don't have a lot of fluff. We really don't have any fluff on our schedule this year. I mean, every time we step out there to compete, our guys are going to have to be ready. So there's not going to be a lot of margin for error. We're going to have to be on our game, and we're going to have to be ready to compete every time we put our singlets on this year. So it's good. I like the way it's set up. I feel like having a couple matches in the month of December is a good thing, and then we'll take a little bit of time off over Christmas and then roll right into the second semester.
Tony Robie, any final thoughts as we head? Because we will circle back and get another episode in here in the month of November following Missouri and Northwestern, leading into the Cliff Keeney Invitational. But thoughts on the first week and this week off, heading into Mizzou and Northwestern?
I'm just excited. I mean, it's that time of year, like you mentioned at the beginning here, is that it's go time for wrestling. November is when it gets rolling. So if you're a wrestling fan, it's a pretty cool time of year. I want to thank everybody that helped make the Hokie Open another really successful event. We had well over 400 competitors, 13 wrestling mats going on up there, a bunch of volunteers working tables. I think we had close to 1,000 people that attended the event and came through the doors. So, everybody that was involved, Larry Hall and Don Squires and the guys that run that event and make it a huge success, thank you so much. And everybody that worked tables and volunteered, it was another great event, and we appreciate their efforts.
Hokie fans, listen to Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling anywhere you go by subscribing on Apple Podcasts. Go to InsideVirginiaTechWrestling.com/iTunes, or you can get the exclusive Android or iOS apps by going to InsideVirginiaTechWrestling.com.
Show is part of the Mat Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MatTalkOnline.com.